Hey, good morning, everybody. I'd like to help us think a little bit differently about immigration policy this morning. And I want to start with this. And so here's kind of the thing that I want to lay out is that immigration policy is not principally about immigrants. Immigration policy is not principally about immigrants. Immigration policy is principally about the federal government. So the reason that I want us to think some about this is because a lot of the conversations that we're having and a lot of the rhetoric that's being circulated is to, demonize immigrant communities, that they're letting out criminals and insane asylums and they're terrorists and they're gang affiliates, etc. But you see how all of those conversations, that's focusing the issue on the immigrants themselves. But the issue of the people, the immigrants, right? That's downstream from policy conversations. And policy conversations have to do with the government. So I want us to begin thinking differently about this. And really, principally, immigration policy is about what power are we willing to invest in the federal government and what restraints on that power make sense from the perspective of Americans, of voters, of civilians, of citizens, or whatever. See, the concern that I have is not principally with whether some particular immigrant is affiliated with some gang or not. The concern that I have first and foremost is to what extent am I willing to concede individual power to the government and their ability to track, detain, deport, expel. See, those are the things that I'm interested in, regardless of whether people are worthy of some arrest, detainment, deportation, expulsion, etc. Before we get to that conversation, the conversation that we need to be having as citizens in America is to what extent are we comfortable with conceding our power to the government to just round people up and to get rid of them. And you may say, well, listen, if they're bad actors, then for our own safety, right, that's a principal role of the government, right, to ensure safety, security, tranquility, etc. We certainly think the government should do those things for us in service to the people, because it is the people that consent to be governed, and the government should be in service to the people. See, the question is, what limits would we be comfortable with placing on the government? Or maybe another way to think about that is, are we comfortable with placing limits on the government's authority? See, that has to do before we even get to the immigrant question, because certainly there will be some downstream considerations of due process, of evidentiary standards, of our sort of legal code of when charges are brought and how fair trials are conducted and what reasonable penalties are imposed as a result of violating certain legal codes, civil codes, etc. But those consequential conversations, see, that's downstream from what authority are we comfortable with giving to the government. And I'm not comfortable with giving the government the authority to round up and detain people on loose evidentiary standards and then to take action without robust presentation of the evidence. So my concern is not principally with the immigrants themselves. That's not to say that I don't have any concerns about immigrant communities, but it's to say that when we're talking about immigration policy and border security, that my concern is not principally with the immigrants. It's principally with what power am I willing to concede to the government. And I want us to think about that, because I think a lot of people are caught up in, oh, well, immigrants are bad, or immigrants do this, or they want to take our jobs, or they're gang affiliates, or they're terrorists, or whatever. But all of that is downstream. I want you first to think about what government power should the federal government have? What standards should we hold them to? What restrictions should we place on their power in order to detain, deport, etc.? Are we comfortable with giving the federal government that power? Because if we concede that power to the government with immigrant communities, it's not that many steps more to allow that same power to be exercised with American citizens, which we already see hints of, threats of, coming out of the Oval Office. That even if you're a bad offender, a bad actor, if you're an American citizen, should the government be able to just round you up and detain and deport you? So I just want us to think about immigration policy. It's not principally with the immigrants. It's principally with what control are we willing to give the federal government.